am Raj Makkar for PCR TV. We are in Paris at PCR 2018, and with me here are Dr. Lars Sondergaard from Copenhagen, Dr. Francesco Maisano from Switzerland, Zurich, and Dr. Bedogni from Milan. So we are here to talk about TAVR procedure. TAVR has pretty much become the standard of care in high risk and intermediate risk patients, and there are a number of new designs with TAVR devices. We are going to talk today about the PORTICO valve. So Lars, I'd like for you to introduce this valve design and tell us about some of its features.
Yeah. The PORTICO valve is based on a self-expanding technology. It's made by nitinol, and it was actually the first valve which was re-sheathable, so you can do a partial deployment and then recapture if you're not happy about the position, and thereby have a more ideal position than most of the patients. It's also have bovine leaflets, which is believed to have is stronger than porcine and thereby more durable than a porcine leaflet. And also, very important, the leaflets are positioned in an interannular position, which means that the patient will be hemodynamic stable during the deployment. You don't need to pace, you won't see blood pressures going down, which is of course an advantage if you have patients with impaired LV function. Also, if you use the PORTICO valve either in combination with the PORTICO solo sheet, which is expandable, recollapsible, you have the smallest introducer diameter in this field, in the TAVI field. Actually, it's somewhere between 13.5 and 14.5 French outer diameter when you introduce the sheet. So this also means that you can treat more patients by a transfemoral access, which of course will benefit the outcome of the procedure for the patient. The system is also very flexible, so even though the patient have very tortuous anatomy, it can be in the iliac arteries, it can be the aortic arch, or even if the patient have horizontal aorta, it's pretty easy to get this valve up to the aortic valve, and also to be aligned with it. The stent frame itself it's cylindric, so in the LVOT there is a reduced interference with the conduction system, which will help to bring the pacemaker rate down in these patients. And also finally, the cells of the frame is quite large. So if you have chunk of calcium, they're likely to sit between inside these cells and thereby reduce the rate of paravalvular leak for the patient.
Thank you, Lars. And it is available in 4 different sizes.
It's in 4 different sizes. It's come in 23, 25, which is 18 French outer diameter, and 27, 29, which is 19 French diameter. So it's going to cover annular size between 19 and 27 millimeter.
Okay, and it is CE marked, and it is available in the in European Union.
It is, yeah, and been there for several years, and there's been a trial going on in US. So let's see when it's available in the US.
Okay, so that brings us now to Francesco. So Francesco, tell us about the PORTICO I trial, which is a very large study. So tell us about the design of the study.
Yeah, so it's a prospective multicentre non-randomized study. It's basically a post-market registry which has been enrolling almost 1,000 patients in 61 countries, including Europe, Canada, and Australia. And we have been able to report the data on 941 patients who were included in this cohort of patients who had an attempted implantation.
So this is a large post-marketing registry, and people are often skeptical about the results of registries. So are there any strong methodologic points that relate to this particular registry?
Yeah, so very important, there has been an adjudication of events by independent committee, and as well the findings have been adjudicated, the imaging findings have been adjudicated by a core lab. So pretty strong methodological background, and very importantly is depicting a large user community. So we're talking about 61 centers in 3 different geographical areas. So I think it really reflects the real-world use.
Okay, and these results should therefore be generalizable to the large interventional community. So Francesco, tell us about the salient findings. What type of patients did you first enroll in the study, and then tell us what were the main findings of the study?
So the baseline characteristics of the patients enrolled in this study are very similar to many other studies in this field. These are elderly patients with a predominance of females, and these patients have an intermediate risk profile, confirming the trend in the last years to expand indications, although more than 60% of these patients have frailty which has been objectivated by objective measures. 50% of patients have a history of coronary artery disease and either previous CABG, PCI, so pretty high prevalence of this disease. And so the main outcomes which are coming out of this study are that the safety profile of Portico is pretty high. There has been a mortality below 3% and an interprocedural mortality below 1%, and a stroke rate which is 1.6% at 30 days. So it's a safe procedure. As Lars was mentioning, this is probably also because of the ease of use and the flexibility. And in terms of the effectiveness, there has been obviously some degree of learning curve, which means that there has been a 96% success rate of implantation according to VAR criteria. I would say that in the last part of the series, obviously this has been much better with some learning curve. We can discuss maybe in another step. We have seen excellent hemodynamics, both in terms of gradients, in terms of valve area, and in terms of perivalvular leak, with a rate of more than mild perivalvular leak, which is below 4% in this particular series, with a depth of implantation which has been 5.4. Again, depicting some degree of learning curve, which has been also found in the data to be predicting for better results. So centers who have done more than 15 cases have been collecting better outcomes. I think it's a long study, and there has been standardizing the procedure. The steps of the procedure have been standardized so that there is a best practice, and the final part of the registry really shows much better outcomes. So today is a reliable procedure.
Okay. So a question that I would ask you is, Francesco, when you look at the results of some of the other devices, how do you put these results in context and compare these results to the other devices? So give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the outcome that we have seen in this registry are basically comparable to other self-expanding platforms. In terms of safety, it's competitive, and again, I think there has been an important learning curve in this for this device. We all know we have been the first users. We have been learning how to implant some of the features similar to other devices, but we learned that the specificity of this platform, and so I see potential for even better results in future. But what we have in front of us at the moment is solid data that says that this device is providing results which are in line with other devices and with some advantages which have been already demonstrated by Lars before, and I think I feel very confident of using this device in patients.
Okay. Very comparable mortality, PV leak rates, pacemaker rates, and stroke rates, compared to the other self-expanding stents. So Professor Bedogni, tell us, what is the place of this device in your practice? Where do you think it performs the best? Where do you tend to use it?
Well, I think it's a very good workhorse valve for the majority of clinical and anatomical indication. I think that our preferred indication for difficult femoral access, because we can use sheathlets due to the low profile. We can use in very tortuous anatomies because it's a trackability. And I think it's very important to use in coronary artery disease, because the large cell stent design help us and allow us to to cannulate easily the coronary artery. I have some special indication in our experience that is a valve-in-valve procedure, because it's a very light metallic structure, and the large cell sense help us to avoid high final gradient, and allow us to re-enter in a coronary tree, because the coronary occlusion is one of the major problems in valve-in-valve procedure. We use also Portico in very elliptic annulus, because its conformability allows us to reduce the perivalvular leak, and in our experience very effective. So there is some special indication but we can use in the majority of the indication. I think another good indication in the alternative access, because is ready to have the short delivery system that is easy to use in subclavian or transaortic approach.
Well, thank you. So I'll come back to Lars. I think if you can sum up what the results of Portico I will do to your day-to-day practice when you go back to Copenhagen. You are one of the PIs along with Francesco of this study, which is a very important study for Portico. Tell us how you will incorporate these results and how it will affect your clinical practice.
I think the Portico I data support what we have seen in the CMAC trial. So even in real-world setting, this provides state-of-the-art outcome, both procedural measured, but also on a safety issue. So I think as we're moving forward to treat patients at lower surgical risk, even younger patients, I think this is a valve which certainly could be considered in this. It not only work in the standard TAVI patient, but it would also work in the more difficult cases with, as Francesco was saying, with a borderline access vessel, calcified aortic, horizontal aorta, impaired LV function. So I think this is for sure going to be one of the main players in our institution.
Terrific. That allows us to conclude this session. Thank you for your attention.